It's wonderful to see you all. It's truly a pleasure and a privilege to be hosting one of the most important, accomplished, and courageous journalists in Latin America today. I just want to start by saying I think this book makes at least 3 important contributions. First is it just simply contains an immense amount of reporting of important events that many other journalists do not cover, not just events, but also personal stories that are very beautifully told. And we get a really great sense of the origin of self-defense movements from this book. Second, while some tend to focus on the autodefensa's deep historical roots, Luis Hernandez Navarro emphasizes that one must see them within the context of neoliberalism, both legal neoliberalism and then later on extra-legal neoliberalism in Mexico since the 1990s. Finally, much of this reporting was done in the years after official government reports on Mexico's so-called dirty war or guerra sucia, which during the Fox administration and after, these studies put the so-called dirty war into a neat little historical package and relegated them to the posterity of history. This book demonstrates numerous times and with numerous examples that the dirty war did not end and that it was and is ongoing. So those are 3 very important contributions. I just want to start with one question for Luis. Again, tonight, if you have a comment or a question, comments as well as questions are welcome. If you have a comment or question, please let me know in the chat function, which I'm trying to call up right now. So my question for Luis is, you originally, the Spanish version of this book was published in 2014. If you were writing a similar book today, can you give an example of a part of the analysis that you are sure you would keep? And can you give an example of a part of the analysis that you think you would have to revise?
Good afternoon to everybody. Thank you very much for the invitation. Thank you for your comments, Kenneth, and question, and thank you to Miguel for organizing the meeting, all the things he did for the book. If you don't mind, I prefer to speak in Spanish. My English is too weak to answer the question properly. No?
I will do the interpretation afterwards.
Okay. What do you prefer, Miguel? To speak slowly and then stop, or to give an?
Go for it, and I'll try to summarize. And many of our audience is also bilingual, then they will get it.
Okay. ¿Qué se puede conservar hoy en día del esquema de interpretación sobre lo sucedido hasta 2014? Básicamente, el corazón es como ante una crisis de inseguridad muy profunda, la gente en México se ha venido organizando en 2 vertientes. La vertiente de las comunidades indígenas, que recupera sus sistemas normativos y su identidad para enfrentar ese clima de inseguridad, y los grupos de ciudadanos que se organizan también para la autodefensa en cuanto a ciudadanos y que no tienen necesariamente una pertenencia étnica detrás. Yo creo que este es un primer elemento.
Okay, the first element. Second way of organizing is a civilian way of organizing that created what is called the self-defense.
Este proceso de inseguridad se ha profundizado a partir de lo que podríamos llamar plenamente el florecimiento de un narcoestado, en donde las instituciones estatales han sido capturadas por el crimen organizado y han organizado el conjunto de actividades económicas relacionadas con ellos, con la protección de los aparatos estatales.
This phenomenon had deepened and has at the same time blossomed under what is called the moment of the narco state, in which organized crime related to narco trafficking, drug trafficking, had created also a spaces of self-governance in which they need to develop security apparatuses, also forms of governance in local and regional levels.
Hablo de narcoestado porque hay un conjunto de actividades económicas ligadas a la economía criminal que solamente pueden existir y desarrollarse a partir de la protección de elementos claves del Estado mexicano.
And I talk about a narco state because it indeed needs structures of governance that will support the economic development and the possibility, the feasibility of the economic development of the business. And they need a state to be able to do it.
Y estoy hablando de otros actores como empresarios que lavan dinero en distintas ramas económicas como la del turismo, como la ganadería, como la venta de automóviles de lujo.
And there's other, of course, series of activities that are connected to this alternative governance, business people that are in the process of laundering money through tourism, through cattle ranching, through many other services.
Estoy hablando de notarios que certifican las propiedades de los grandes capos. Estoy hablando de policías, jueces y militares que los protegen.
Also, notaries and the cadastral people that keeps cadastral titles, the titling of lands, and the investment in property that will need also municipal officers, police bodies, and the military even.
Una de las tendencias que se ha venido profundizando a partir de 2014 y que arranca sobre todo en 2010 es cómo los elementos del crimen organizado funcionan como un instrumento para la guerra sucia, para desaparecer activistas ambientales o luchadores sociales.
Simultaneously, we see from 2010 to 2014 this period that this wave of what we call dirty words is also used to disappear members of civil organizations, peace activists, environmental activists, indigenous activists. That is like a long tradition.
De tal manera que el trabajo que se hizo en la guerra sucia y que hacían militares o que hacían policías, hoy está siendo efectuado por los agentes del crimen organizado.
Then what we saw done by the military and police during the dirty wars of the past is now being done by the organized crime and their security apparatuses.
Esto que arranca sobre todo a partir, o sea, la primera experiencia clara que hay en México de cómo el crimen organizado sirve para eliminar activistas sociales, acontece en 2006 en Oaxaca con el movimiento de la Asamblea Popular de los Pueblos de Oaxaca. Ahí se contratan a narcotraficantes para eliminar a dirigentes sociales.
One of these first instances in which organized crime comes into take the position of other agents of the state in the dirty wars in 2006 during the indigenous organization meeting in Oaxaca, in which narcos hired a hitman to disappear or kill and murder many of these members.
Pero se convierte ya en una política constante en 2010 en el estado de Guerrero con la desaparición y la ejecución de Lucas, del que se habla en el libro.
But it consolidates somehow in 2010 in Guerrero. That is the focus point in the book with the disappearance and killing of Lucas, what is said in the book. It's the moment in which it happens, the trigger.
Y ahora se ha extendido a estados como Chihuahua, estados, por supuesto, como Michoacán, el mismo estado de Guerrero. Es decir, se ha convertido en un modelo de intervención para contener los procesos de organización social.
Now has become a model of contentions of social organization, the process of social organization, not only in Guerrero, but in Michoacán, in Chihuahua, and elsewhere.
Entonces, este patrón de comportamiento que aparece ya en el libro señalado, pero aparece, digamos, acotado, ¿no? Con ciertas barreras, después de estos años que ha pasado, se ha venido extendiendo y profundizando.
And this behavior has not only taken hold in these regions, but is exponentially growing across the land.
Y se concentra sobre todo en contra de dirigentes indígenas, muchos de ellos involucrados en luchas de carácter socioambiental, el ecologismo de los pobres, en contra de la minería a cielo abierto, en contra de los talabosques, etcétera, etcétera.
And it has been concentrated specifically towards indigenous leaders and social leaders working in environmental issues against mining operation, illegal logging, and issues related to their well-being.
Y este patrón de comportamiento se mantiene vivo a pesar del cambio de gobierno que hubo en México en 2018. No ha desaparecido.
And what is interesting is that this behavior, this way of the modus operandi keeps even in the changing of the political establishment with the change of government from one to another.
No sé si está respondida la pregunta.
Sure. Yes, I have a follow-up question, but if someone else has a question, they can definitely go before me. So I guess two questions is, so since 2014, have the actors leading or ordering or organizing repression changed? I would imagine that you see what I've seen is a fragmentation of repression, and it's more localized, and in this situation it's almost more easily carried out locally and has less of a national federal logic to it. And so I guess I just wanted to see what your thoughts were on that question as to well, who's doing the repressing now under this new situation. we realize the repression of activists hasn't changed, but has the structure of how that repression is organized changed. And then I guess my other question, has the structure of self-defense changed since 2014? Those are big questions that might take you a while to answer, but ¿me entiendes?
Muy interesante. A ver, la lógica de la represión es fundamentalmente una lógica territorial, ¿sí? Acotada a regiones específicas. No estamos hablando en este momento, a partir de 2018, de una represión definida desde la federación, sino desde los poderes locales.
Then the repression indeed is localized and focalized and territorialized. We are not talking about repression that is generalized from the top to the bottom, from the federal to the regional level.
Por ejemplo, el de cómo empresas mineras, para controlar el territorio de las concesiones que han obtenido, se asocian con el crimen organizado para frenar a la inconformidad social de esas concesiones.
One example, how mining companies that get concessions for mining blocks hire local self-defense or policing groups, or basically sicarios, to get control over the territory by the use of force and intimidation.
O en el caso específico, estoy hablando, eso es muy claro en Guerrero, por ejemplo, en la región donde actúan empresas mineras canadienses con concesiones. Pero si vamos hacia Chihuahua, lo que podemos ver es la operación del narco para controlar territorios forestales en manos de los indígenas tarahumaras, ¿no? Y entonces el asesinato de los dirigentes indígenas tradicionales para tener el control de ese territorio, para seguir sembrando ahí marihuana y amapola, y para tener el control de, el paso de la droga.
Then that's the case of Guerrero, for example, with multi-transnational companies in the mining sector, many of them Canadian. The other cases in Chihuahua, in which we have, for example, organized crime, narco traffickers in particular, targeting indigenous Tarahumara leaders that are protecting their forest that is being used not only as a place of cultivation of marijuana historically, or poppy nowadays, but also as a corridor for their activities.
Y efectivamente, entonces ha habido también una transformación muy importante de los procesos de autodefensa en las regiones.
Indeed, there is a transformation of the response of these organized movements of self-defense.
Por ejemplo, algunos de estos movimientos de base genuinos han sido capturados, cooptados por el crimen organizado, que han terminado formando sus propias policías comunitarias para tener el control del territorio, de las carreteras, etcétera, etcétera.
Indeed, some of these movements, some of these community policing organizations have been co-opted by organized crime, and now they are installing themselves in the territories to control, let's say, corridors, highways, or points of within this network.
Es, por ejemplo, interesantísimo y muy fuerte lo que está pasando en el lugar donde se formaron las autodefensas en Michoacán, en el municipio de Tepalcatepec y en Buenavista, en La Ruana. Ahí el grupo original de las autodefensas rompió su alianza con uno de los cárteles más importantes de este momento, el cártel Jalisco Nueva Generación, y se han estado escenificando verdaderas batallas campales por el control de ese territorio.
This is the example, for example, of some of the self-defense organizations in Michoacán, particularly in the region of Tepaltepec and the Ruana, in which this community police broke off from the control of the Jalisco New Generation cartel, and now they are starting a face-to-face battle with them, real battles between these two forces.
Entonces ha habido una transformación muy grande de las mismas expresiones de autodefensa, en donde por un lado el Estado ha tratado de cooptarlas y desnaturalizarlas o dividirlas, y por otro lado el mismo crimen organizado ha tratado de utilizarlas para sus propios intereses.
Then yes, we see this deep transformation of these organizations by two forces that collide within them. That is the state trying to disperse them, break them down, divide them, and at the same time the organized crime to try to co-opt them or take control of them. Wow, el panorama es impresionante.
Es impresionante. Quizás un elemento que puede ayudar a contextualizar más, algunas cifras. Alrededor del 10% del Producto Interno Bruto en México está asociado a la economía criminal.
Right now, we say that around 10% of the PIB of Mexico comes from illegal means, organized crime.
Con actividades distintas, tráfico de drogas, tráfico de personas, prostitución, secuestro, piratería.
That implies different activities, right? Not only drug trafficking, but traffic of humans, prostitution, piracy, etc.
Y la actividad económica principal de la economía criminal es el tráfico de drogas. Heroína, ¿no? Pues hay un mercado creciente en Estados Unidos, aunque está cayendo, ¿no? Aceleradamente. Paso de cocaína, producción de drogas químicas.
But indeed, the central economic activity is drug trafficking, as heroin in particular, cocaine as Mexico as a passing area, and methamphetamines, all the chemical drugs now used in the US.
Eso significa que solo de tráfico de drogas se mueven en México alrededor de 65 mil millones de dólares.
We're talking about $6.5 billion, $6 to $6.5 billion related to these economic activities in Mexico.
Un dinero que, por supuesto, entra a los canales de la economía formal.
That, of course, is there's money laundering processes to make it legal back in Mexico.
Y vemos aparecer de la nada grandes malls, ¿no? Ciudades relativamente con pocos recursos, llenos de automóviles Mercedes-Benz, BMW, automóviles de lujo. Vemos pequeñas comunidades rurales con antenas parabólicas y grandes camionetas. O sea, hay todo un movimiento de una economía sumergida, pero que es muy importante para la vida cotidiana del país.
And what we see is how this economic this prosperity is expressed in the emergence of huge malls in small communities, luxury consumer items as cars or wealth is completely disproportionate in these small communities that now are completely surrounded by the consumer items that are part now of the everyday life.
Y vemos ciudades muy importantes desde el punto de vista industrial como Monterrey, en donde de repente se van a vivir las familias de los narcotraficantes, sus hijos van a las más exclusivas universidades privadas, las hijas de la élite regiomontana pues se enamoran de los hijos de los narcos con todo el dinero que tienen. Hay un proceso de imbricación de las élites muy, muy profundo, muy estrecho en lugares como Monterrey, como Mérida, etcétera, etcétera.
And what we see also is a social and cultural transformation that is taking place in big cities, like in the north in Monterrey, in which many of these narcos come with their families to live, and they prosper, they send their kids to the best universities, like Tec de Monterrey. Tenemos un Tec de Monterrey por ahí, así que tienen que hacer una pregunta. And how these children of this new wealth also get together with the former elites, and they get together not only in Monterrey, but places like Mérida, creating this social transformation, this cultural transformation of the nation.
Y hay ciudades que son santuarios, donde hay muy poca violencia, porque ahí están establecidas las familias de los narcos, ¿no? Por ejemplo, Mérida. Es un paraíso vivir en Mérida.
And there is also this phenomenon of the sanctuary cities or regions that are far away from violence because they are the places in which the families of the organized crime lords are living. That's the case of Mérida and the Yucatán Peninsula.
Pero, y por otro lado, tenemos este proceso de guerra contra el narcotráfico que ha provocado descabezamiento de los cárteles y pulverización de los cárteles y que ha llevado a muchas de sus células entonces a replegarse en las regiones más pobres del país.
Then we have other people abandoning these places of violence and coming to the poorest places to find some sort of solace and security.
De tal manera que estas células criminales en los lugares más pobres cobran derecho de piso a la señora que tiene un pequeño puesto en el mercado, cobran derecho de piso al señor que tiene un pequeño puesto de hot dogs en la calle, extorsionan a los taxistas. Es decir, hay el nivel de violencia y de inseguridad ha bajado a las comunidades más pobres.
And what that is creating is that we have these criminal cells taking control of also poor places in which the woman that sells produce in the market, as well as the hot dog stand or a taxi driver, are subjects of extortion, taxation by these organized criminal cells. The violence had co-opted and take over everybody.
De tal manera que sí, perdón.
We have a question from Mauricio Hernandez.
Mauricio.
Sorry, my son is making some noise, sorry. What has been the involvement of the foreign governments beside the U.S. involvement that has been mentioned in the book? For example, the Canadian government towards the Canadian mining companies around the Mexican self-defense movement.
El gobierno canadiense ha defendido muy claramente los intereses de las empresas mineras, ¿no? Y si ustedes ven la composición del anterior gabinete o incluso de este nuevo gabinete, van a poder ver que hay una expresión directa de esos intereses en el nuevo gabinete.
Then indeed, the Canadian government has been defending their economic interests in Mexico, and we see that clearly expressed not only in the representatives from the past government, but in the current representative officials that represent the Canadian government in Mexico today.
Y hay hechos que me parecen simbólicos, como el de el asalto a una mina de oro en el estado de Durango por parte del crimen organizado. Fue uno de los asaltos más escandalosos y más grandes en la historia de los asaltos en México. Y el gerente de esta empresa, entrevistada por la televisión canadiense, hizo un comentario que es más o menos el siguiente. Él dijo, no entiendo qué sucedió, teníamos muy buena relación con ellos, nos cuidaban, ¿quién sabe qué pasó? Y por supuesto, ante un comentario como ese, el gobierno canadiense guardó absoluto silencio.
There is a very clear example of how things work. ¿Dónde pasó exactamente esto? Perdona.
En Durango. In Durango.
In the city of Durango, there is a big gold mining, gold operation that is controlled by a Canadian company. And they had an instance of an attack by an organized crime cell. And when in the interview, the president or the manager of the company is asked to express what happened, he says he didn't understand what happened. If they had great relationship with these people, they were they were securing their premises before that. He didn't understand. That is a clear somehow connection between the two phenomena taking place.
So it strikes me that at least in the Michoacan case, which is the one I know best, that it's very hard to, that basically you've had very short-term alliances of very difficult to follow situations in which the three basic actors are autodefensas, the state officials and the army, and then the narco sector. It seems to me that the autodefensas have become largely part of the sort of incentive and opportunity structures of neoliberalism and narcotraficantes. That has anyone maintained? Have any of the autodefensas maintained the sort of ideal type? I mean, and you already say in the book and that there is a typology of autodefensas, that there are many different kinds. Does the ideal type still exist, or is there an exemplary organization that has consistently made a difference in their particular region? Because Michoacan, in most places where there have been autodefensas, violence has increased, not decreased.
Es muy interesante la pregunta. En Michoacán hay dos grandes expresiones de autodefensa. Por un lado, la que viene de las comunidades indígenas, muy claramente la experiencia de los comuneros de Santa María Ostula o la de Cherán en contra de los talamontes. Es una larga experiencia anterior a las autodefensas como tal, y la que surge en 2013 alrededor de grupos de civiles armados.
Then it's a great question, because in Michoacán we have two expressions of this phenomenon happening simultaneously, or not simultaneously, but in different expressions. One is the one that we have seen in Santa Maria Osula, that is an indigenous based organization, the same kind of expression that we saw in Cherán against the forest cutters, and the other one that started around 2013, more civilian-based organization. Déjame decirte un mensajito de Elaine Meisner, te manda a decirte que te encantó verte, que se tiene que ir un poco más temprano y que estará en contacto. Just,
Thank you very much. Bye, Elaine. Gracias. Thank you. Okay. El grupo de autodefensas civiles nace de la convergencia de una serie de intereses. Grupos de grandes agricultores afectados por el crimen organizado, un sector de antiguos productores de marihuana que están en la región de Tepalcatepec, que están siendo afectados por el cártel en aquel entonces de los Caballeros Templarios. Hay muy claramente una presencia estatal, ¿no? Se han documentado casos de coroneles que participan en la organización de estos primeros grupos y la protección de la Policía Federal. Y finalmente, lo que en la Revolución Mexicana se llamó la bola, es decir, todos esos sectores descontentos, jornaleros, pequeños productores de limón, etcétera, etcétera, que se suman a la bola y que convergen en esa primera oleada.
And then what we have in the civilian organization is a number of groups that got together to defend themselves against the cartel, the Templars. And among them, we have landowners, which stake in large monocrops, old marijuana farmers that had been impacted by the appearance of this new cartel, with the support of the state police, in which former military members had contact with also federal level police or the military for purposes of training, and a number of small members of other sectors that will join this enterprise, small producers of lemons or different kinds of produce within the region.
El gobierno intervino y trató de cooptar, dividir, institucionalizar esa fuerza de autodefensa que se formó, incluso dándoles una especie de reconocimiento legal.
Until this thing was big, even the federal government had to try to institutionalize this manifestation of self-defense, creating some sort of legal status for them.
En el fondo, uno de los elementos centrales que están en disputa en el estado de Michoacán es quién controla el puerto de Lázaro Cárdenas, el segundo puerto más importante en el Pacífico.
But what is in dispute here is the control of the second most important port in this area of Mexico, that is the Lázaro Cárdenas port.
Y que es el lugar por donde entran los precursores químicos para hacer las drogas de diseño, o por donde sale también cocaína hacia Europa, hacia Estados Unidos, heroína, etcétera, etcétera.
That is the point of entry for all the chemical precursors used for the production of these chemical drugs, methamphetamine, etc. And also is the way out of these illegal products to the US and elsewhere.
¿Qué queda de esas autodefensas originales de 2013 basado en los civiles? Queda, por un lado, más o menos 3 o 4 autodefensas enclavadas municipalmente, que son una fuerza genuina, ligada a la gente, que ha logrado mantener, por ejemplo, en el municipio de Chinicuilas, el control territorial y la seguridad de esos municipios.
what is left of this big movement in 2013 nowadays is 3 or 4 small municipal police organizations like the one in Chinhuilas that are still trying in a legitimate way to control security issues in their region.
En el municipio de Tancítaro, que es conocido como la capital mundial del aguacate, el famoso oro verde, los grandes agricultores que habían formado su autodefensa la institucionalizaron y la mantienen como una fuerza de control básicamente local y de defensa local.
Another one is the one in Tancítaro that is well known because it's the world capital of avocados. That, as you know, is the new green gold. And the people in this municipality had institutionalized and keep operating their municipal police, communal police.
Uno de los cárteles que habían participado en la formación de, una de las células criminales que habían participado en la formación de las primeras autodefensas, que se llamaban a sí mismo los Viagras, ¿no? Se llamaban así porque sus integrantes tenían un copete muy hacia arriba, es el origen del nombre que tienen. Ellos rompieron con el gobierno y comenzaron a tratar de controlar territorialmente el lugar.
But there are some other segments of this force of 2013, the ones called Los Viagras, that had a very particular physical manifestation that broke out of the organization to create, their own new organized criminal cell.
Y la alianza que había entre el Cártel Jalisco Nueva Generación y los dirigentes de la autodefensa de Tepalcatepec, encabezados por el abuelo, se rompió. Y desde entonces, en los últimos 8 meses, han habido combates absolutamente sangrientos, ¿no?, por el control de Tepalcatepec y de otras rutas para salir a
And that we see in the past 8 months, for example, is the breaking of this alliance between the Jalisco New Generation cartel with the forces of El Abuelo, the grandfather, granddad, for the control of the Tepaltepec corridor, a very important corridor for the transit of all this traffic.
En resumen, los cárteles se han reorganizado y son hoy una fuerza muy importante en el estado de Michoacán nuevamente.
Then what we have in Michoacán now is the reorganization of cartels that has become a very important force nowadays in Michoacán.
Next, we'll hear from Mateo Villamizar.
Thank you, Ken. I have sort of like a 2-part question. The first one is that I found really interesting in your book that you sometimes talk about the lack of state capacity in some of these places, but then when there's state capacity, you sort of like allude to the idea of a state capture by the narcos in each one of these places, right? So it just finds, I just find interesting, like, how can the actual government deal with these organizations when A, you don't have state and these organizations are replacing the state, or B, what's happening when the state is actually being captured by these narco states and they're just defending themselves? Sort of the second question that it's a little bit farther away from that is just a question of representation of indigenous interests in the Mexican political scene. There's differently to other countries in Latin America, there are no special representation or electoral benefits for indigenous communities in Mexico. Like, there's nothing in Oaxaca, and there are like these vacíos or empty spaces in the Mexican political arena for indigenous people. So mixing both of those things is just like, would increased representation of indigenous interests in local and national discussion and legislative issues would have any impact, or we just still, despite having that, we're just going to have a failure of the state to provide security in these places?
Muy interesantes las dos preguntas. La primera, la de ¿qué está haciendo el actual gobierno para enfrentar el problema frente al narcotráfico? El nuevo gobierno definió 3 grandes líneas de acción. Primero, la creación de un nuevo cuerpo de seguridad, una nueva policía, que es la Guardia Nacional, que es realmente una policía militarizada, pero hay toda una discusión sobre eso. Pero ese es el primer elemento, ¿no? A partir de la idea de que la antigua Policía Federal no era inservible, no era corrupta y que había que crear este nuevo cuerpo. Esa es la primera acción. La segunda acción fue definir un programa de apoyos económicos para jóvenes, de tal manera que los jóvenes dejaran de servir como sicarios para los cárteles porque tenían ingresos. Y la tercera medida ha sido la medida de avanzar en una especie de amnistía que cree las condiciones para la reconciliación.
Then what we have to try to answer your first question of capacity. In the new government, we have a 3-leg policy trying to tackle this problem. And the first one is the replacement of the federal police by a new state force, the National Guard, that is basically a military police that will be deployed in a clean way to places to control security issues. The second is a program for the support of youth, some sort like a social, es como una transferencia de dinero, ¿verdad?
Exactamente.
It's like one of those social economic transfers for youth in order to give them economic autonomy to avoid or try to avoid them to get into illegal businesses, right? Give youth an option outside of the illegal trade. And the third one is to advance in a potential amnesty to bring about all these groups into the possibility of reconciliation, a dialogue and reconciliation.
Si miramos las cifras de violencia, de asesinatos, de robo, el mismo movimiento de las drogas en México, lo que podemos concluir es que esa nueva estrategia ha sido un fracaso.
Well, we can see in numbers the statistics of this policy in the time that has been implemented has been a failure.
Se puede decir que ha pasado todavía poco tiempo para que la Guardia Nacional se consolide como una nueva policía y que ha pasado apenas un año en que los jóvenes están recibiendo esos apoyos, pero básicamente lo que se ha visto en las zonas donde opera el narcotráfico, donde hay violencia, es que esto sigue sucediendo. Que la violencia se han incrementado.
But what we see is an increase of all sorts of violent indicators, despite probably we have to give more time to these policies to really sink. Probably the National Guard is too short-lived. They haven't been able to really act together in 1 year. Same thing with the policy for youth or the amnesty. So far, it's short time to see if things are moving in the right direction.
Sobre la falta de representación de los pueblos indígenas, creo que es un diagnóstico muy preciso. En 2001 hubo la oportunidad de hacer una gran reforma constitucional que terminó convertida en el parto de los montes, no, quedó siendo una caricatura de reforma indígena.
You are completely right about indigenous representation in the country. In 2001, there was an opportunity of a constitutional reform that unfortunately was co-opted by politicians that really didn't meet the expectations of the indigenous.
Hay algunos avances regionales. En Oaxaca, por ejemplo, hay 412 de los 570 municipios que pueden nombrar a sus autoridades conforme a sus sistemas normativos y no mediante el sistema de partidos.
There are some advances in places like the state of Oaxaca, in which 402 of 570 municipalities are able to claim autonomy via normatives, indigenous normatives that are connected to cultural uses within specific municipalities of the state.
En Guerrero hubo una legislación específica para las policías comunitarias de base indígena, que fue la ley 701, que se echó para atrás y ahora nuevamente se está volviendo a recuperar. Pero en lo especial hay una gran carencia de representación.
And we have other example in Law 701 in Guerrero that was trying to create a legal framework for community police in indigenous territories. But yeah, there is a lack really of representation and possibilities for indigenous communities.
Hay una deuda histórica con los pueblos indígenas que no se ha pagado.
There's a historical debt with indigenous peoples that we have.
Y hay la necesidad, desde mi punto de vista, de refundar el país para que sea no solamente una nación de ciudadanos, sino una nación de ciudadanos y de pueblos.
And what I can say is that what we need is really a refundation of the state in which we can bring everybody together, all the peoples, the nations within the nation, to start over.
Next, we have a comment or question from Joe Hiller. And remember to unmute yourself, Joe.
Yeah, thanks guys. Thanks Miguel. Thanks Luis. My question is really about the present moment. I'm wondering how the various autodefensas and other armed groups have responded to quarantine measures, either in terms of their illicit economies, and then in terms of state authority in these areas. So building on the last question and trying to respond to this novel pandemic.
Bueno, eso es otra vez muy interesante. Prácticamente todo el México indígena, haya o no haya policías comunitarias, las comunidades se han cerrado. No están dejando entrar a gente de afuera, ni siquiera a sus paisanos que vienen de Estados Unidos o tienen que hacer una cuarentena antes de poder entrar.
What we have seen in the indigenous communities across Mexico is that they have closed themselves in during this pandemic and not allowing anyone to get in, not even their fellow citizens or members of their communities coming from the US without a real quarantine.
Solo en el estado de Oaxaca hay 172 municipios, comunidades que se han cerrado sobre sus propias fronteras.
Just in Oaxaca, 172 communities had closed completely to the world.
Eso también se ha vivido en la montaña y la costa chica de Guerrero. Y ahí las policías comunitarias han jugado un papel muy importante para garantizar que se funcione este sellamiento de las fronteras.
And then in Guerrero, in Costa Chica, and in the mountainous area, we have also the community police being active in the closing of the communities. They have been a real actor in making this happen. Y la segunda parte de la pregunta era un poco más si existe, si hay algún tipo de idea, si esto está afectando el crimen organizado y la manera como funciona el tráfico.
Claro, sí, se ha intensificado la lucha de los cárteles por el control de los territorios. Hay un problema de abasto de materias primas, hay un problema de distribución en los mercados locales, de tal manera que se han disparado los indicadores de violencia.
And what we can see in the organized crime world, in the sub-world or in the real world, is that there is an increase of violence among different cartels and organized crime groups, because there is, of course, an impact on the supply chain in the way they distribute. Then there is a real bloodbath now taking place in many territories of Mexico because of this reorganization and this kind of problems happening in the supply chain.
Habría que demostrarlo empíricamente, lo que voy a decir ahora, pero durante toda la primera fase de la pandemia, uno de los estados donde hubieron mayor número de enfermos, de contagiados, fue precisamente el estado de Sinaloa, que es la cuna del cártel de Sinaloa, ¿no? Ese es un indicador interesante. El segundo indicador es que varios de estos cárteles están saliendo a entregar despensas a sus bases sociales que tienen el logotipo de los cárteles. El cártel Jalisco Nueva Generación te entrega esto. La Fundación Chapo Guzmán te entrega esto. Están cuidando la base social y sustituyendo lo que antes o debería de ser responsabilidad del Estado cubrir, ¿no?
Then what we can see, and we will need some empirical evidence for this, is, for example, what is happening in Sinaloa, that in the first phase of the epidemic, we saw Sinaloa as one of the hot spots. Is the place in which the cartel of Sinaloa has great activity. But then very fast, we saw even the cartels creating these social networks, trying to support their social base by giving them food, groceries, right? But only if you can affiliate with them by using their logos, right? The Cartel Nueva Generación or the Chapo Foundation, they are, maintaining their social bases as good autonomous territories, right?
So another force for change or forces for change, both within and without indigenous communities, are women, either environmental organizations or environmental philosophies. And one can see these, the people and actors who are proponents of this kind of thing being at odds with the self-defense movement as being a bunch of macho guys with guns. Has that been what you've seen, or are they working in tandem together?
Lo que he visto es que en ciertas regiones hay una muy importante participación de mujeres en las autodefensas. Por ejemplo, la policía popular y ciudadana de Temalcatepec, en la montaña de Guerrero, está dirigida por una mujer indígena, hablante náhuatl. Ella es la comandante Lupita y ella es la que, la que manda, ella es la que conduce allí todo ese proceso. en el libro se habla de la experiencia que vivió la compañera Nestora, ¿no? Que ahora es senadora de la República, ¿no? Por el partido gobernante, ¿no?
Oh,
Y que tiene, pero ya no funciona, y ahí la fuerza de ella en el municipio donde ella estaba, ¿no? En el municipio de Guamustitlán, de Oninalá, está muy limitada, ha avanzado el crimen organizado, ella misma tiene dificultades para entrar. Si ustedes ven la experiencia de Cherán, es una experiencia donde las mujeres tienen responsabilidad y mando. Diríamos que una de las cosas que ha venido sucediendo en estos años es este empoderamiento y esta participación creciente de las mujeres en los procesos de autodefensa, ¿no? Al punto de ocupar responsabilidades de mando dentro de las policías. No es solo un asunto de machos o de imagen de machos, etcétera, etcétera, ¿no?
Yeah.
Creo que
Just because they're women doesn't mean they're not macho.
bueno, ok.
That's another thing.
No, because I was mainly referring to women's organizations and their relation to the autodefensas.
But let me summarize this.
But yeah,
because-
but I get what you're saying. But yeah.
Let me summarize this. Yeah, definitely there is a significant number of women that had been part of this self-defense. Of course, it is still a male-driven phenomenon, but there are, for example, 2 or 3 cases that we can talk about. One is the one of Comandante Lupita, that is the head of the community police in Temaltepec in the highlands of Guerrero, a well-known case that is also in the book. The famous case that is also in the book, and that is also a national case, is Comandante Nestora, who was the founder of one of the self-defense groups in Huamuchiclán.
Guamucitlán y Oninalá, sí.
Yoninala, that actually she was in prison, betrayed by the local police and the state forces, put in prison, but now she's a congresswoman by the group in power now in Mexico. And also the case of what we saw on Monday, we showed this short film about the women organization or women lead organization in Cherán taking control of the town at the beginning and at the center of the whole organization of the Cherán phenomenon.
Mi impresión es que hay un gran proceso de autoorganización de las mujeres, especialmente las mujeres indígenas. Hay 3 momentos para ver este proceso de autoorganización. Por un lado, lo que fue la candidatura o el intento de que Marichuy fuera la candidata del Congreso Nacional Indígena a la presidencia. Fue un proceso acompañado por muchísimas mujeres indígenas. Y la realización en Chiapas de 2 encuentros de mujeres absolutamente masivos, solamente de mujeres, con un fuerte componente de mujeres indígenas, ¿no? Ahí hay un proceso de transformación, de autoorganización de las identidades muy, muy poderoso desde mi punto de vista, que viene desde las raíces y que perfila un feminismo de una naturaleza distinta al feminismo urbano, que también está en efervescencia en México, ¿no? La última movilización del 9 de marzo fue inédita en México en términos de la participación también masiva de miles y miles de mujeres en todo el país y de actos de violencia o de intervención en edificios públicos, de prenderle fuego a estaciones de policía, etcétera, etcétera.
But yeah, definitely. Actually, we have a really interesting emergence of women organizations in Mexico. I can talk about 2 or 3 cases. The first one is the one that was connected to the National Indigenous Congress, in which Marichuy was proclaimed the candidate for presidency at one point, and she was the leader of this indigenous group, female representative. Also, what is happening in Chiapas with a couple of meetings, actually some of our students participating in some of these meetings, the colonial indigeneity, the colonial feminism in Chiapas, in which indigenous organizations, women indigenous organizations, are taking the lead and the voice in many of the processes of organization there. Then we can see that there is this feminism other, or this other feminism taking place in Mexico, but that simultaneously goes along with the urban feminism, let's say a more like mainstream feminism that is also in crescendo in the cities. We saw clearly in the February demonstrations, women taking to the streets and even doing really hard interventions in the public sphere and in the public landscape, you know, using fire and all sorts of other means.
So we're down to the hardcore now. So it's open. You don't, if anybody has any further comments or questions, just jump in. You don't need to signal me on the chat. We can just jump in if anyone has another comment or question.
But to me, something that is very interesting is that when we think about self-defense, we always think about Zapatismo, right? As this big public, mediatic also a movement that took by storm, you know, the social consciousness of Mexico, Latin America, and the world in the moment of the end of this, you know, of the consolidation of neoliberal capitalism in the world, right? As another option, and that somehow signaled the emergence of many indigenous movements across the land, and we see them coming in and out, back and forth. I know you were part as a reporter, as a journalist, as a sympathizer, also as a representative in the dialogues, and I know that you have been looking at them also by afar. I would like for you to comment on them and how we can see them from afar or from within Mexico, if they still have appealing, they're still be relevant. I know that they are relevant in their territories, but somehow as a light to move forward for this kind of refundation of Mexico that you call, that not only you had called it, but Javier Sicilia, Emilio del Valle, Emilio Vizcaya, Alvarez y Casa, and many had called. I mean, that what is needed is to think Mexico anew. But I don't know. So.
Déjenme contar una pequeña anécdota personal para un poco ubicar el marco de respuesta. Y es esto: durante muchos años yo trabajé como asesor de organizaciones de pequeños productores de café, que en su mayoría eran indígenas. Y esas organizaciones, el lenguaje que se hablaba allí, a pesar de que la mayoría de sus integrantes eran o son indígenas, era el español, y la forma en la que unos se referían a los otros era la de compañeros productores de café.
Let me tell a little anecdote. For many years, I was a consultant for small coffee organizations, mostly indigenous organizations of coffee producers in the south of Mexico, and they referred to each other as cadres, of organizations at that point.
Cuando,
Compañeros.
compañeros, cuando estalló la revuelta zapatista, la insurrección zapatista en Chiapas, organizamos una gran reunión nacional con los productores para buscar una salida al proceso de paz. Y en esa reunión, el presidente, Humberto Juárez, un indígena mazateco, en lugar de hablar en español, comenzó hablando en su idioma mazateco, ¿no? Y en lugar de hablar a los demás, refiriéndose a ellos como compañeros, les dijo hermanos indígenas.
But one big change happened after the Zapatista, when we got together with one of these leaders, and he started to talk to the other members of the group in his indigenous language. The change from Spanish, and that was something that I omitted, all the conversations were in Spanish before, but after the Zapatistas, when we got together, this indigenous leader started to talk in his indigenous language. And he, when he referred to the members of the group, he didn't call them cadres, he called them brothers.
Esa revolución en sus conciencias, ese orgullo de ser indígenas, esa dignidad que de repente les brotó públicamente, las podían tener en su interior, pero brotó públicamente, no ha hecho más que extenderse desde 1994 a prácticamente todos los pueblos indios del país.
This change of chip that happened thanks to the Zapatistas had cemented a new way in which indigenous communities, indigenous nations, indigenous peoples are referring to themselves since 1994. That has been very important.
Y desde entonces vemos una lucha por la defensa del territorio, una lucha por la defensa de la seguridad con policías comunitarias, una lucha por el reconocimiento de sus idiomas y su derecho a tener educación en sus propias lenguas, un florecimiento de su literatura y de su cultura verdaderamente sorprendente e imparable, ¿no?
And with all against, what we have seen is an emergence of self-determination, a call for the use of their languages, renaissance in their cultures, in the way they write about themselves, in the way they recognize themselves, a constant struggle for self-determination in their own terms has been remarkable.
De tal manera que muchas de las luchas de resistencia que hay en México desde hace años, incluso ahora, responden al eco de ese levantamiento y tienen como referencia lo que los zapatistas hicieron en su momento.
Then all the struggles that for many years and centuries of the indigenous peoples of Mexico had been somehow revamped. They are using the echo of the Zapatistas in the response to these new ways of resistance.
Y creo que ese grito es un grito que sigue teniendo audiencia entre un sector de la juventud, entre una parte de la intelectualidad, entre una parte muy importante de los maestros de educación básica que también se han movilizado a lo largo de todo el país, entre una parte de los pobres urbanos. Eso sigue allí, eso sigue presente y aparece cada día en estas luchas de resistencia.
And this has consequences and still have resonance and space of solidarity that grows within huge movement within the intellectual or sectors of the intellectual world, with the teachers that are a very strong collective in Mexico, also with the urban poor this is still present and comes in and out and is still present in ways or forms in Mexico.
Que ha habido un cambio en las conciencias. Hay una relación muy tensa con esas fuerzas y el nuevo gobierno, ¿no? Hay un enorme foso y un choque que se expresa en la oposición del movimiento indígena y del zapatismo a la construcción de grandes proyectos de infraestructura en el sur mexicano, que van a marcar en mucho, me parece, el destino de esta nueva administración.
And recently what we have seen is a tense relation, actually also a clash between the Zapatistas and the new administration of AMLO with respect to the big infrastructural projects that the government wants to develop in the south of the country. And that's going to mark or taint somehow this administration further.
Those sound like great closing remarks, unless someone has thought of another comment or question. Well, thanks very much. Muchísimas gracias to Luis for joining us from Mexico City. And thanks to everyone also for joining us.